Okay, let's see. Hello, everybody. I am streaming on Instagram and Facebook at the same time. Yay, look at me go. Let's see what kind of delay we have today. Please comment and let me know that you can see me or hear me. Hi, Elizabeth. I had don't mind my summer hair, a really, really strong pull today to come and talk about grief, because grief wears many faces and we sometimes only associate it with when somebody passes away. We associate grief with a physical death, and that's not always the case. And so I wanted to discuss some of the stages of grief, but how it shows up in a spiritual awakening, and not just in a physical death. Because in a spiritual awakening, we often, we do often, but we will go through these cycles of death and rebirth. And we're going through one of those cycles right now. So it's no surprise to me that I was pulled to do this live. Because while people will always experience physical death, and we will have to go through the grieving process, when we wake up and come into new awarenesses, which is essentially what waking up is, right? It's really, when we say we're awake, we are more aware of our own reality. We are more aware of our beliefs and our triggers and the things that in the world that we all of a sudden see with new eyes, right? Yes, Elizabeth. We just don't know. We see things with we start to see more things and we're like, well, this is not okay. And we start to get super angry or frustrated, and we start going through this release of these beliefs and identities. And remember, this is where the grieving comes in, because when we label a piece of ourselves, a belief or something that we did wrong, if we give it identity, right? If we give it meaning, if that belief or that thing, we give it meaning and say, this means something about us, that this thing that we did or that was done to us means something, then we are essentially creating a separate part of us. This is what we call fragmenting. And parts and pieces of us start to go away, and then we start to feel broken. We don't feel whole because we've essentially disconnected those pieces of ourselves and said that those things are no good about us. We've identified them. So what happens is we go through this death and rebirth. And so I'm going to go through the stages of grief, and I'm going to kind of give them on both sides, the sides of a physical death and the sides of a spiritual death, because this energy that we're in right now is very much of spiritual death. And I don't say that to scare anybody. It's actually a really good thing, because we are stepping into the lightness of our energy, and we're allowing and accepting more things, right? So we don't take things so personally anymore. So let's go through them, because they also associate a lot with wounding. So the first stage is denial, right? Let me know if you have experienced denial. This is not happening to me. This did not happen. This event did not take place. You feel overwhelmed. This is not normal. What I did was not normal. What I'm feeling is not normal. This is like the twilight zone. Yes, a lot of denial. That's how I was when I first woke up. I was like, denial city. And I felt like I was in the twilight zone. I denied myself. I denied what was happening. And going into physical death, when my grandmother and my father passed away, I was in complete and utter denial. Like, I knew it happened, but I was totally denying the fact that they were gone, and that like there was so much of it. It was like I denied everything. I wanted nothing to do with what was happening. I completely shut down, and I was like, nope, this isn't happening. I'm okay. The world is okay. And the same thing happened when I woke up. When my intuitive senses woke up, I denied it. I was like, I just have anxiety. This is not happening. I am not seeing things. I am not hearing things. I'm not feeling things. None of this is happening, right? So we go through the same thing as a physical death with a spiritual awakening. So I want to bring in both aspects because I'm really feeling called to right now. So that's the stage one, is denial. And it's totally normal, you guys. It's totally normal to deny that bad things happen. Nobody wants to have bad things happen. So, and I'm not ignoring you guys. I will come back to the comments, but if I get out of my flow, chaos ensues. So stage two is anger. And this is when the reality of what's happening sets in. It starts to take hold on us, on our energy, and we begin to get frustrated. We begin to feel helpless and powerless, and we just have so much rage in our body. And I know this happened for me for sure when I started to accept the death of my father and my grandmother. And the rage was intense. But here's the thing about anger. Anger is a good thing. It really is a good thing. Anger is a catalyst for change. Anger says it's time to do something about what you're feeling. It's time to move this energy. Think of rage as a fire that just burns, right? It goes up. And what does that fire do? It disintegrates things, it dissolves things, and it wants to transmute that heaviness that we're carrying and holding in our body. It wants to liberate you so that you don't feel that pain anymore. So if used correctly and channeled, and you allow that rage to tell you what needs to change in your life. So rage equals change. Just remember that. When you feel that, you know that there's something that needs to change in your body. The next stage, and well, let me think about this though. In a spiritual awakening, it's the same thing. So when things don't work in our life and energetically, when we are going around and we're stuck in our comfort zone and all of a sudden we hit that wall, and you guys who are awake and are spiritually practicing, you know what I'm talking about. It's like things are going really good and then you just hit this wall. It's like an upper limit that you hit. And you just go back over the same cycle over and over and over again. You start to get really pissed. Or when you're awakening and you start to see, this is my sign to know if people are waking up, right? We start noticing all the chemicals in our food. We start noticing the chemtrails in the sky, right? We start noticing how our political system is ridiculous. So these are the things that we start getting really angry about. The government wants to regulate what we do with our bodies. The government wants to tell us if we can vaccinate our children. We start getting really, really angry about things that are out of our control. A telltale sign if somebody is waking up. And remember, an awakening just means we're becoming more aware of our reality in a whole new light. So that's the difference between an anger of the grief of someone physically dying and the grief and the anger that we feel during our awakening process. Again, anger and that rage means change. It means it's time for a change. So the third stage in grief is bargaining. Okay. And I know you guys will all have experienced this. Hi, Kelly. When we begin to dwell and obsess about the what ifs and if only. Okay. If I had done this, if I had just said this, if I had done this one thing, it all would have been different. It all would have been different. It all would have changed. This wouldn't have happened. This bad act that I committed wouldn't have happened. This thing that this person did to me wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have died, right? If I had only been there, if I had only said the thing. Guess what? This is us bargaining. This is us trying to justify what happened. This is when we start. A lot of times, this is when people who are facing a physical death, that have a physical loss, begins to wake up because they begin seeking a source outside of them. They start seeking God or angels or spirit guides or their loved one that died. They're trying desperately to connect with the other side and feel that they are still with them. And a lot of times, this is where people begin to wake up because when they started calling on that and opening up that possibility that we're only losing our physical body, all of a sudden we start experiencing our own intuitive senses at that higher octave. This is what we call extrasensory. When we awaken those senses that aren't just of our physical hearing, it's extra. And it's very normal. In fact, we all have all the abilities. It's just that they are dormant, or we deny them, or we don't access them on a regular basis. And you don't have to. It's mainly for you, right? First and foremost, it's always to serve you. So when you're in that space of bargaining, whether it's with, I have been in this space, not only with when my father and grandmother passed away, but when on my spiritual journey, when I'm going through this letting go of old habits and old beliefs and things that didn't serve me, and I'm getting ready to go to that next level, that bigger awareness, right? So just think the awareness gets bigger and bigger. Your sight, your purview gets bigger and bigger every time you up level, right? We go through physical body changes. I'm going through a big physical body change right now. And it's not always comfortable. And we bargain and we're like, what do we do? Help me, give me the answers. How do I lose this weight? How do I get this job? How do I get these clients? How do I make my business work? How do I find the love of my life? We seek outside of ourselves. That is the bargaining. And this is our sign that we are seeking something greater than ourselves, and we're looking for answers. But the truth is, and the final stage of grief is acceptance, and this is the biggest key of all, no matter what you're going through, whether it's a physical loss or a spiritual rebirthing. When you accept that this happened, and it just happened, we strip the identity. We strip the identity, we strip that it means something about us. We strip that we had any kind of say in a divine plan greater than us. And we just accept that this is a piece of our building block. It is something that made us. It made us who we are today. It made us stronger. It made us love more. It made us stop and be present with each other. It made us bring our attention back to ourselves and our family and what is meaningful to us. Because how freaking distracted are we today? Acceptance. You cannot receive unless you accept. Think about someone handing you a $20 bill. In order to receive that money, you have to put out your hand. It has to be open, right? And we have to be willing to accept it. So the same goes with the physical death and the spiritual awakening. We have to accept that the death happened and that it had no meaning other than this event took place and these people are still with us, and we had no bear of change on that. There's nothing we could have done to change that divine plan. That means you're saying that you have all the control of the world and you have control over another person, which we don't. We never do. The only thing we can control is our response to any event that's happening. And with the same goes for our own body and our own spiritual path. If we don't accept and allow and open up that hand, we're saying that we know all the ways, that we know everything, that it can only happen if we cut out the carbs. It can only happen if we sell this one product. It can only happen if we search for this one type of person and we look for them in a certain place. And that's just not the case. We have infinite possibilities. There are a multitude of ways that we aren't even aware of. We don't even have any idea of. We don't know everything. And this is why you don't have to believe in everything. But it doesn't hurt to be open to it and allowing yourself to see it. Because what you believe, you will perceive. So the reason why I bring all this to your attention is because I've been led to teach a course, and not a course, but a masterclass, a free masterclass on forgiveness. And the way that I teach forgiveness is very unique. And this is free. There's no string attached. And it'll last however long it lasts. And I don't have an exact time yet because literally I was just given this information from my team. So I do know that it will be July 20th, which is a Saturday. It's also a very special day for me. So I know who's behind it. I know who's helping me. And I want you guys to watch. If you're on Instagram, watch my stories and watch my posts. And if you're on Facebook or YouTube, make sure that you have me on notification. And I will post what time it will be at. And of course, a replay will be available if you are on my email list. And I will send it out to you. So this is a part of the book that I'm writing, and this section is already written. And I want to just give because this is so needed. People need to learn how to understand forgiveness and forgiveness of themselves. So stay tuned for that. Mark your calendars. Let me look through some of the comments really quick. Elizabeth says, I thought this journey was all rainbows and unicorns, and 'tis not true. That's for sure. I'll tell you, people think spiritual awakenings and being a more aware to spirit world means rainbows and butterflies, because that energy is all loving, and it's completely not. And here's something that if you follow me, you probably heard me say it 100 times, but I'll say it again. And that is, we did not come here to suffer. And Spirit always says, suffering is self-obsession. If you are suffering, you are making something about yourself. Because we're meant to feel an energy, a pain, a discomfort. We'll only feel it for about 20 minutes for the most part in any given day. And this is our body letting us know something's wrong, that we need to do something. There needs to be attention, awareness brought to that space. But we attach to it, we give it meaning, we make it mean something about who we are in our journey, and then we begin to suffer because we become obsessed upon that. And so that is a really good point. Thank you, Elizabeth, for making that. Hi, Brandy. Yes, I know this is perfect for you, hon. Hi, Trinity. Hi, Lynette. Robin, I'm actually not doing energy reads today. I'm just sharing a message. Trinity says, I went through that with death of a man I loved. He was one of my angels now. Yes. And you do feel them around you. I know for me, my dad became my gatekeeper. And what that means is he helps me speak to other people's loved ones. I have a second gatekeeper for angels and other beings. But I went through this stage where I wasn't connecting to spirit. I was in a form of benevolent beings, which are loved ones. I wasn't connecting to loved ones. I had one of those ghost moments, in the movie where she feels like she's being surrounded. So I was doing a healing session, and all of a sudden I just felt all these beings coming at me, and I knew they were people's loved ones, but I had no way of understanding and regulating them. And the reason why is because I hadn't gone through the grieving process with my father completely. I was still holding on and bargaining with what I could have done differently, how I could have changed things. I wasn't in full acceptance that I needed to mend that relationship, even in the spirit realm, right? Because they can always hear us. They can always give us signs. They communicate through our own consciousness. So they give us impressions, visions, synchronicities, spiritual signs. We're actually going to be talking about this Thursday night on my radio show, The Breakdown. We record it live on YouTube. So if you guys want to join, just search The Breakdown Radio on YouTube. We're going to be talking about the signs and synchronicities. But I had to heal that relationship with my dad in non-physical form. I had to communicate with him and forgive myself, and release the energy of resistance so that I could open up those lines of communication. And in doing so, I've been able to begin to speak to spirit again. I've been able to speak to people's loved ones and beginning to learning the encyclopedia that ensues of all their signs. It's so crazy. So if this calls to you, first of all, if you are somebody who's experiencing a loss, I know that there's a couple on here that are, and you're hurting, I'm holding space for you. And that is one of the things that I also wanted to talk about, is that when somebody physically dies, we all become super freaking awkward. We don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. And I want to give you guys some tips about this. If you come across somebody that loses a loved one, or if you yourself have lost a loved one, I want to tell you, when your friend or family member goes through this, What they need the most from you is grace. That's exactly what my name means, by the way. It's one of my superpowers, and it means to hold space. This means there's not a freaking word you can say that will make them feel better. There's not one. There's nothing. There's not a thing you can say. And we often are looking to fix people. How can I fix this? How can I make somebody feel better? How can I take away their pain? But we can't. It's not our job. It's not our journey. This happened as part of their divine plan because there was growth needed, and it was just the way that it needed to be. So all we can do in that time is love them and hold space for them. Let them cry. Let them talk. Don't try to give them reasoning. Don't try to tell them it will be okay. Don't try to tell them that they have to get out of bed and go move, right? Don't tell them that they need to eat. Don't tell them what to do. Love them through it. Be there to let them cry on your shoulder, to hug them, to give them touch and connection, right? Be there to talk to them when they want to talk, and you listen. The best teachers and healers and counselors or friends are the ones that listen without trying to fix the problem. We're going to go through waves. So just allow that person to be held in the most loving energy and ask them if there's something that they can do to be of service. If they say they don't know, then let it be. When they do know, they will know who to come to. But we are not here to fix each other. We are here to fix ourselves. And that requires us to go through these processes. Okay? So I hope that this was helpful to you guys. And like I said, look forward to this July 20th. It is a Saturday. I will be teaching my unique way of forgiveness for self and others. And it can be used through the spiritual awakening rebirth, and it can be used through physical loss. Okay? Yes, I was reading an Instagram comment, guys. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me. Look forward to my post that tells you when this will take place. It will take place on a Zoom. And so I will, you'll need to look for a specific post and know the time and how to join. And I look forward to being of service to you guys. Love you. Bye-bye.